Good afternoon, I'm Jared Brosnan, and this is the Chapman News Podcast for Friday, April 3rd, 2020. The coronavirus has forced us home, but we're still delivering you the news. Let's get started with the day's major headlines. Today, the global death count reaches more than 50,000, and the number of cases globally has passed 1 million. Here at home, there are more than 200,000 active cases, and the death count exceeding 5,000 in the United States. Grim predictions from the White House: as many as 240,000 Americans could die despite the social distancing and prevention measures in place. President Trump cautioning the country to be prepared for a tough 2 weeks ahead, but experts say this number could be reduced if more states follow the health protocols like staying at home. Now, the White House is about to recommend that people wear masks when they go out, following officials in both New York and California. This contradicting earlier CDC recommendations. Top medical expert Dr. Anthony Fauci, who has made those grim predictions, is now getting increased security from law enforcement. This after facing threats to his personal safety. The source of this threat has not yet been identified. A record number, 6.6 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits, putting the economy in a deep freeze. Estimates show that the past 2 weeks have erased nearly all the jobs created over the past 5 years. Economists say that if this trend continues, we'll reach as many claims as in the first 6 months of the Great Depression in 1929. And the Trump administration says it is now freezing the export of protective gear to overseas allies amidst a serious shortage of medical supplies right here in the U.S. This 10 days after the U.S. appealed to countries around the world for supplies ranging from hand sanitizer to ventilators. With more on the shortage of medical supplies and what healthcare professionals are saying about this crisis, we have Lindsay Arabian with our medical report. Lindsay?
Thanks, Jared. The situation in hospitals has only become more serious over the last 2 weeks. Shortages in staff equipment and the supplies are at an all-time high, and it's projected to get worse from here. Some of the most serious shortages are those of ventilators, protective masks for healthcare workers, and now some hospitals might be facing a deficit of oxygen. Medical experts predict that in the U.S. the virus will reach its peak between mid-April and mid-May. But reaching the peak does not mean that people should stop following the social distancing recommendations and other precautions that the government and CDC have laid out. Medical experts say the longer we comply, the sooner we stop the spread and return to normal. In efforts to relieve overwhelming hospitals, the U.S. Navy sent the USNS Mercy to Los Angeles and the USNS Comfort to New York to treat patients with non-COVID-19 symptoms. Now, we know there are a lot of questions surrounding this pandemic, so we reached out to our resident medical expert, Dr. Lamb, who answered some of our most pressing questions.
Thank you so much for doing this interview with us. I'm just going to dive right into the questions. So, how effective are homemade masks to prevent the spread of the coronavirus, and should the U.S. copy China and other countries by having everyone wear masks?
Right now, the debate is ongoing, and we're still waiting for the verdict. But as we are understanding about the virus more on a daily basis, I would concur with Dr. Fauci and Dr. Redfield that all Americans should be wearing face masks right now. But we have to be mindful that there is currently a national shortage of personal protective equipment gear, such as N95 masks and surgical masks for healthcare workers who are on the front line. So I'm leaning towards endorsing the idea of wearing face masks. However, we also need to prioritize who should get the face masks first.
What are the preferred disinfectants to clean surfaces and to protect ourselves?
Some of the disinfectants that have worked very effectively are just plain soap and water. And we know that just the friction from scrubbing with soap, any kind of soap and water, can break the coronavirus's protective envelope. Another disinfectant that has been used often is bleach. And the CDC recommends diluted bleach solution, at least 1/3 cup bleach per 1 gallon of water, or 4 teaspoons bleach per 1 quart of water for virus disinfection. The third disinfectant to consider is isopropyl alcohol, so the hand sanitizers that we've been endorsing, as well as alcohol solutions with at least 60 to 70% alcohol.
Should I be washing fruits or disinfecting food packages before handling or opening them?
So the recommendation is to wash before we transfer the food out from the containers, and washing our hands we eat and washing our hands after we dispose the bag and the container where the food came from. With regard to fruits and vegetables, just with water and washing it thoroughly, that's the main recommendation.
How long is the incubation time, and how do I know that I'm contagious or sick with COVID-19?
Mm-hmm. The average or median incubation time for COVID-19 or the SARS-CoV-2 virus is approximately 5 days. For any symptom to occur was between 11 to 12 days after being infected with the virus. And approximately 2.5% of those infected with COVID-19 start displaying fever after being infected for at least 12.5 days.
Will we see a second wave of COVID-19, and will the virus mutate?
I would say that we may see a second wave of COVID-19. Definitely not in America right now. We're not at the apex yet. Maybe later on this year, if we don't take precautions that are recommended by the CDC and the WHO, we might not even see a second wave because we might still be in the midst of it towards the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the major updates we have for you this week. We will continue to keep you updated on this quickly developing story. This is Lindsay Arabian from Whittier, California for Chapman News. Back to you, Jared.
Thanks, Lindsay. Life during this pandemic has changed dramatically for all of us, and life at Chapman is no different. However, as Chapman's campus becomes more and more empty, the sense of community is growing more than ever before. We have Gianna Gravelisi with the updates on how Chapman is continuing to handle COVID-19.
Thanks, Jared. Whether still on campus or not, students are being provided resources to get by. We spoke with Chapman's Associate Director of Community about his role and how it's become more important than ever.
The importance of my role is doubling down into what I do on campus and working with students who may not feel fully integrated into the larger Chapman experience and what impact that has on them. Now they have been removed from that and now are far away from that community that they were already struggling to feel a part of, and now they're completely distant. So it's me going in even deeper and constantly reaching out, to students and saying, hey, I'm here. If there's anything I can assist you with, please let me know. For me, it's extending a lot of grace to students and understanding that this is a challenge for them, and I can continue to do my best in lending my support and my services digitally. But what I'm hopeful of is in going through this experience, we will come to understand that none of this was possible without community and collaboration.
You can contact Justin via email at juriley@chapman.edu. Students can also continue to access career advising services, tutoring, and even attend cross-cultural drop-ins remotely. You may not be able to go to the Chapman gym, but Fitness and Recreation is providing all students with free access to the Fitness On Demand app, where they'll find plenty of at-home workouts to keep you busy during your time inside. Editors, don't stress either, because Avid is giving a 90-day license to students, giving them access to Media Composer, Pro Tools, and more. Jerry Price's weekly announcement states that commencement is being rescheduled, perhaps for after late summer. Seniors have been asked the likelihood of them coming back, starting in June and going as late as October. We've all been adjusting to our new Zoom classes, but a virtual reality class at Dodge is coming up with a way to bring people back together while still maintaining social distance. With a special headset, students are stepping into a virtual classroom online, where they will be studying and researching virtual conferencing for the remainder of the semester. We'll continue to keep you updated, Panthers. I'm Gianna Gravelisi, reporting from Boston.
Thanks, Gianna. And going into week 3 of California's lockdown, more warnings for residents to stay home. How are Californians coping with these new developments? Our reporter Rudy Juarez Pinedo takes a closer look.
Thanks, Jared. Now, Governor Newsom predicts half of Californians, that's roughly 22 million, could contract the virus. And as the number of cases continue to rise, California is holding its breath as it tries to avoid being the next New York. Drastic measures have been taken across counties. State beaches, hiking trails, and parks are closed after thousands of Californians flocked outdoors. And now, Mayor of LA, Eric Garcetti, is telling Angelenos to wear masks if they go outside. But as city leaders urge residents to stay home, millions of Californians are getting desperate to make ends meet. With rent and bills starting to pile up, residents such as Adriana Fisher are feeling the pressure.
Right now, it's not looking well. I mean, it probably, if I do start working within like the next week or two, I mean, that will help me maybe by May. But as far as April goes, I might not be able to pay my car payment. I might not be able to pay, my credit cards, my student loan.
Adriana is a special education aide at Anaheim Elementary. The school district told her that they were going to stay open. At the time, Orange County was a low-risk area. But then things took a turn when the school suddenly closed.
It just kept getting extended, like the time that we were going to be off. It went from 2 weeks till April 20th. Then it went to May 1st. Then yesterday we were actually told that we're going to be out the rest of the school year.
Adriana took a 50% pay cut on her only source of income. She pays $2,400 a month in bills and rent alone, and that doesn't even include utilities and groceries for her and her toddler.
My worry was just, how am I going to pay all my bills? Am I going to be able to make it on my own? I'm going to have to go back home with my parents. That was what was going through my head. So immediately I just started applying for jobs, anything that I could find.
Adriana was able to get a job at Amazon, but backed off after hearing they weren't providing gloves and masks for workers. Thankfully, she has a job interview at Target tomorrow. If she gets a job, it'll be just the thing she needs to make it through the pandemic. Now in California, 2 million unemployment claims have been filed in the past 2 weeks. Governor Newsom and more than 80 local governments have passed some form of a mortgage moratorium or temporary ban on evictions, but what remains uncertain is if it's enough relief to help residents, or will the safety net break under the growing weight of debt. This is Rudy Juarez Pinedo for Chapman News.
Thanks, Rudy. Although our home state was one of the first to shelter in place, more states have started to shut down, including stubborn holdout Florida. However, President Trump has stated that he is not looking to declare a national stay-at-home order. With more from Washington, we have Jackie Gold with our national political report.
Thanks, Jared. This week has been filled with briefings, predictions, and of course, politics. Like many presidents in times of crises and wars, Trump's approval ratings have gone up to 49%, equal to his best ratings ever. But he is still being criticized for ignoring warnings about the pandemic and acting too slowly. Trump said that he would accept a call from Joe Biden, who offered to call the president to give him advice. Biden has frequently referenced his time under the Obama administration during the Ebola crisis. And after the former vice president called to move the Democratic National Convention to August, party leaders decided yesterday to hold it the week of August 17th. States that have not already postponed elections are enacting more hygiene requirements, like hand sanitizer at polling locations. As of now, the November general election is still scheduled as usual. And when President Trump was asked why he did not issue a national stay-at-home order, he replied by saying he'd prefer to leave it up to the governors.
There are some states that are different. There are some states that don't have much of a problem.
With your national political report, this has been Jackie Gold from Albany, New York. Now over to Michael Karabit with your state-level politics.
40 states have issued stay-at-home orders for their residents, Georgia, Mississippi, and Florida taking effect today. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis issued the order after coming under fire for keeping beaches open for spring breakers and churches open for worshipers.
At this point, I think even though there's a lot of places in Florida that have very low infection rates, it makes sense to make this move now.
DeSantis' order requires that all essential businesses remain open, which has caused more criticism for his decision to leave gun and ammo stores open. And Florida, along with other states like Texas, are still leaving churches and other in-person religious services open. The Washington Post also found that Florida, where President Trump now claims residency, has received all medical supplies it has requested, but other states are struggling to get any federal assistance. Just last week, Los Angeles County received 170 broken ventilators from the national stockpile. California Governor Gavin Newsom got them fixed in Silicon Valley. And in New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo warned that with current rates of hospitalization, the state only has enough ventilators to last 6 days. New York currently has the highest number of confirmed cases and deaths from COVID-19 in the United States.
16,000 deaths in New York. That means you're going to have tens of thousands of deaths outside of New York. It's a New York problem today. Tomorrow, It's a Kansas problem and a Texas problem and a New Mexico problem.
Governor Newsom echoed Cuomo's warning, asking governors from other states, quote, "What are you waiting for?" This week, Newsom and Superintendent of Schools Tony Thurmond ordered that schools remain closed for the rest of the school year.
It seems, I think, self-evident that we should not prepare to bring our children back into the school setting.
To help students adjust to the change, Google is offering 3 months of free broadband internet access to California residents, as well as donating Chromebooks to those in need. There are many ways to get involved with your community during this trying time. Many food and blood banks are still accepting donations and volunteers, so everybody please do what you can to help those in need. This is Michael Korabit reporting from Long Beach, California. Back to you, Jared.
Thanks, Michael. 10 million Americans are out of work and 6.6 million applied for unemployment last week. We have Anna Montemore with our economy update.
Thanks, Jared. We are seeing major shifts here in the United States economy. Just how bad are things, and is there an end in sight? Most economists think that it's only going to get worse, perhaps rivaling the unemployment numbers from the Great Depression in the 30s, which were over 20%. So far, the hardest hit have been the travel and hospitality industries. People aren't traveling and they're not going out to eat. But now the pandemic is affecting manufacturing sector. Auto plants have stopped building cars because there's no one to buy them. The biggest retail chain in the country, which owns Macy's and Bloomingdale's, just furloughed 130,000 workers. This means that employees can retain some of their benefits, unlike being laid off. Amazon workers are protesting unsafe working conditions during the pandemic and the inability to unionize. Amazon claims that it has taken extra precautions needed to increase the safety of the workers. As for California, unemployment claims have also risen immensely. This week, Governor Gavin Newsom estimated that California has received about 1.6 million claims for the unemployment insurance. Also announced this week, the enactment of the largest stimulus bill in history. The 10 million Americans who have filed for unemployment in the last 2 weeks may finally see some relief soon. But it will only come once. The payments from the bill are not long-term, but one-time and only cover 13 weeks of unemployment, on top of what the states already allow. If you're a college student who is listed as a dependent, unfortunately there are no payments for you. If you qualify for payments, the IRS will direct deposit the money into your account. For Chapman News from Seattle, Washington, I'm Anna Montemore.
Thanks, Anna. With the pandemic continuing to cause global jitters, we take a closer look at life far from home. Jada Sandu has our international report. Jada?
Global coronavirus cases have now surpassed 1 million. Over 200,000 people have recovered from the virus, and over 50,000 have died. For those who have recovered, the UK is considering an immunity certificate. This would allow people with the antibodies to start to return to normal life. But they're unsure if this is the safest approach at this time, especially considering some countries are now buckling down more than ever. Italy has extended its lockdown until April 13th, Pakistan until April 14th, Germany until April 19th. Tuesday was a serious day for the coronavirus. On Tuesday, the UK recorded its highest number of deaths, 563 in one day. Italy also had a moment of silence. Flags were at half-mast to honor the victims of coronavirus and to show solidarity to the city's suffering. Also on Tuesday, Lebanon agreed to a policy to let its abroad citizens come home despite the lockdown placed on the country. Now, over in southern Europe, Spain is using 11 hotels in Madrid to house over 700 patients infected with the coronavirus. This allows patients to quarantine without putting their families at risk. In Austria, unemployment has reached its highest peak since World War II, with over 500,000 people now without jobs. Coronavirus isn't just affecting us right now, it's also affecting future plans across the globe. The UN Climate Conference, which was set for November, has now been postponed. The Edinburgh Festival of Arts and Culture has also been canceled for the first time in 70 years. And while Saudi Arabia hasn't canceled the pilgrimage at this point, it is asking Muslims to wait before making their plans for the Hajj. Over in India, 1.3 billion people are home under the world's largest lockdown. Now, the Delhi government has started tracking the phones of individuals infected with the virus to ensure they are following quarantine orders. We have a special report on what this means for Indians staying at home. Satvi Sankara has the story. Satvi, how does it feel to be home?
Thanks, Jada. Even if it means waking up at 4 a.m. for a 4 p.m. class, it's great to be home with my family. As you said, here in India, we're well into our second week of the lockdown. With the number of cases crossing 2,500, many are staying home, only leaving to get necessary supplies.
It's the most that any of us are going to get to step out of the house right now.
This is Ananya Reddy, one of the many students, including myself, who had to leave their universities abroad to come home.
Around the time that they started putting travel bans in Europe specifically, that's when we were just okay, this is way worse than we thought.
Being home also meant practicing self-isolation for the recommended 14 days, with close monitoring from the government.
I had this whole poster put up outside my house saying home under quarantine, do not visit. It was it had my name on it, the country where I came from, the dates.
And while I don't have a sign outside my house, I still receive up to 3 calls a day from local hospitals asking about my health. And sometimes surprise police checks as well. But Ananya said she's happy to oblige if that means curbing the issue before it gets out of hand. Many of us here share the same concern. Is India prepared to fight the virus? I spoke to my cousin, Shweta Sankara, a medical student working during the lockdown.
I think we're doing the most that we can with the resources available and with the population that we have.
We are testing patients, but obviously the kits are not many, so we only test the symptomatic patients.
With a limited amount of test kits and many not being able to afford expensive testing, hospitals are getting creative in this time of need.
We test them for every other organism present. If it's all negative for that, then we start testing for corona.
And despite what the government is doing, she says that the best way to fight COVID-19 is to stay home and practice proper hygiene. No matter where you are during this uncertain time, I hope you're all staying safe and healthy. Reporting from Andhra Pradesh, India, I'm Satvi Sankara for Chapman News.
Thanks, Satvi. Now, despite the devastation of coronavirus, Mother Nature is still providing people with quite the sight. In the UK, as people are on lockdown in their homes, a group of mountain goats were able to get a bit closer to a northern Wales town. Residents say they got to see the goats roaming the streets of the city and eating plants and bushes in the town square. And people are still finding a reason to celebrate. Bob Waiton of Southern England celebrated his 112th birthday. In isolation, of course. But the assisted living facility still sang him happy birthday from a safe distance. And he even received a plaque from Guinness World Records for being the oldest living male. We're wishing you a happy birthday, Bob. For Chapman News from Orange, California, I'm Jada Sandu.
Thanks, Jana. With people around the globe social distancing and staying home, streaming platforms have been keeping us company. We have Jules Rector with our entertainment report and more on what you should be watching. Jules?
Hello, it's Jules Rector reporting from Jensen Beach, Florida, and happy April, everyone. A new month always means fresh content to stream, and with all the social distancing happening, I'm more excited than ever to get some new shows and movies to watch. Parasite will be available to stream on Hulu April 8th, and I'm most excited for this one because I've already rented the film about 4 times. There are quite a few newly released films available to rent digitally, but a lot of them aren't doing so well because many people don't want to pay $20 to rent or buy a film when there are so many new options coming out to stream for free. As a matter of fact, time on streaming platforms has doubled compared to this time last year. It could be because the internet has gone insane with the new Netflix docuseries Tiger King, which features an unusual cast of characters. The show, watched by millions in the last week, has led to a 1997 cold case involving one of the main characters to be reopened. And if you're missing film school, well, guess what? You can now take film history with Steven Spielberg, Morgan Freeman, and other film icons through the American Film Institute's Movie Club. And if you're sick of watching TV and you're missing being at school, why not become a wizard at Hogwarts? You could be a part of the magic with the newly released Harry Potter at-home hub, which features quizzes, articles, and a way to find out which Hogwarts house you're in. Not gonna lie, I was sorted into the Slytherin house, so maybe I should test out my Quidditch skills. But that was your Cornetainment for this week. Now to Carissa with sports.
Thanks, Jules. Sports leagues are still suspended, but as anxieties and frustrations about the virus continue to grow, so does the anger stemming from the shortage of COVID-19 tests. Yet asymptomatic professional athletes, specifically NBA players, are being tested. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver claims the league was following medical directives, which a lot are noticing contradict statements from the White House. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio had his own opinion on the matter, saying he, quote, wishes the athletes a speedy recovery, but with all due respect, an entire NBA team should not get tested for COVID-19 while there are critically ill patients waiting to be tested. President Trump's take on this was that, quote, perhaps that's been the story of life. A big issue regarding basketball this year is the NBA draft in June. March Madness is a great time to showcase the nation's talent entering the draft pool, but now this year NBA teams will have to rely on games played months ago. Workouts with teams across the country will likely get canceled as well. This is even tougher on foreign players, with their international seasons in Europe being put on hold for now. NBA general managers who were planning on making player evaluations based off the equation of playoff game performance and other in-person events, including player interviews and the NBA Combine, will now be challenged in this year's, quote, blind draft. The most notable prospect in this coming NBA draft is LaMelo Ball, who spent his year playing in the National Basketball League of Australia. After a standout season and winning Rookie of the Year for the Illawarra Hawks, it was reported to ESPN by LaMelo Ball's agent, Jermaine Jackson, that him and Ball had purchased the Australian team in a move to have more high schoolers spend their year overseas and not playing in the NCAA. But as of this morning, the Foreign League issued a statement saying that although the discussion regarding the purchasing of the team is true, the National Basketball League has not made any final approval of licensing transactions to date. Ball is projected to be a top 3 pick in this year's NBA draft. Moving on to hockey, the NHL commissioner made the decision to halt the regular season on March 12th, but the Anaheim Ducks have decided to continue paying the wages of 2,100 part-time workers through June 30th for the postponed or canceled future events due to the pandemic. The MLB is still considering all options and efforts to play as many games as possible, which includes regular doubleheaders and playing games without fans in attendance. Diamondbacks shortstop Nick Ahmed made comment that players would be willing to play games with masks on in hopes to make the return to play quicker, but it is clear that the return to play will not be until COVID-19 is contained. Well, that's the latest in sports this week. Reporting from Anaheim Hills, California, I'm Carissa Davis for Chapman News.
Thanks, Carissa. We know that this is a hard time for all of us, so before we go, we want to bring you a little bit of light during the start time. Our Ella Martine has been finding stories of hope. Here's her report this week.
Thanks, Jared. In these trying times, people of the global healthcare community have risked and even lost their own lives helping fight the virus. Essential workers are also risking possible exposures to COVID-19, but all of their heroism is not going unnoticed. Last Friday night, videos of New York City residents applauding these frontline workers took over Twitter with the hashtag #ClapBecauseWeCare. Coming from every balcony and window, you can hear the sounds of people cheering, clapping, whistling, and even banging wooden spoons on metal pots to show their gratitude to the doctors, nurses, first responders, janitors, grocery store workers, restaurants doing takeout orders, delivery personnel, and all of the people risking their own lives to make sure citizens stay home and healthy. Also, on social media, the app TikTok is taking the world by storm in this time of social distancing and self-isolation. The app has become a widely popular platform for the creative users to show their talents. Under the hashtag quarantine, 8.4 billion people have posted videos of things they're doing to stay busy. Reaching 1 million followers on Instagram and 400,000 on TikTok is Jake Miller, a 27-year-old musician from Florida. Using his platform to write catchy tunes about being stuck indoors, Miller and his witty raps have been piling up the views. With nearly 5 million views, his most popular video is a song called Take a Walk, featuring his family, who all chime in about how bored they are in quarantine.
My mama keeps asking me to take a walk. Bro, we've done 30 circles round this block. It's too hot. All the food I wanna eat is out of stock. I need some eggs.
Ask the neighbors, they got lots.
Oh my God. I'm so bored, I'm painting rocks. I'm so bored, I'm switching socks. I'm so bored, I'm counting dots.
Jake?
Yeah?
Can we go for another walk?
Sorry, Millers. With the coronavirus still going strong, it looks like we still have a while of self-isolation. But in the meantime, be sure to check out #quarantine on TikTok for some much-needed positivity. For Chapman News, from my home in Portland, Oregon, I'm Ella Martine.
Thanks, Ella. Well, that's our report for today. Make sure you wash your hands, keep a social distance of 6 feet, and try to stay home, especially if you're sick. We'll try to get through this together. We'll be back with another update on April 10th. Until then, be sure to check out our social media at Chapman News on Instagram and Facebook. I'm Jared Brosnan for Chapman News. Stay safe and stay healthy.